All right, welcome to the Footy Museum and the Footy Museum podcast. I am the exhausted Justin Whitty, and I am joined as always by my co-director of the museum, Maria Van Dyke and Lee. Hi,
The
Maria.
exhausted, the equally exhausted Maria and Lee.
Maria and I are in the midst of putting together a large and somewhat crazy exhibition on Andy Warhol, and we both had long days. Maria did a lot of unexpected painting today at an actual museum, but we'll save that for a different podcast. Maria, what are you
Yeah.
thinking of? But today was also actually good for you, right? There was something good that happened today, just like on our
Oh my
last
gosh.
podcast. Yeah.
Don't tell my boss, but I caught the Leeds Forest game.
I won't tell him. He's such a jerk.
Yeah, he's the worst. What I could catch of the Leeds Forest game was extremely exciting. Even I mostly just listened to the commentary, but the commentators were like, wow, this is exciting. And I was like, I bet. As I listened to Leeds win,
Oh,
finally. Finally, finally, finally.
the yo-yos. I mean, I think our last pod was after they beat Wolves and they moved from like the bottom 3 to 14, and then something happened in between, and
Oh
they
yeah,
lost to some small club. We won't go into it. No,
they got slapped.
Arsenal put them in their place, and then the huge game against Forest, and now they were down. I think what were they at 17th, and now they're up to
They
13th.
were into they were into 18th
They
and now
they were
they're
all the way into
13th.
18th. Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
what a
they were back down in the zone.
oh.
So yeah, very very exciting. And Forrest scored first, so I wasn't hopeful, but then the lads came back. It was awesome.
I had kind of the opposite experience with the Fire, where they played actually a decent game against Miami over a week ago, and then this past weekend played probably one of the most painful,
Ugh.
boring, awful soccer matches I've ever seen. Because DC
I really
United.
don't even I don't
Oh
remember
my
much of
gosh,
it
it
at
was
all.
just like, did anyone tell anyone that they were supposed to be playing? I felt so bad because Christian Benteke is on DC United. And there was one point they showed him, and the look of regret and confusion on that man's face is so painful. And your former Leeds man,
Oh yeah, click.
Click, is also on DC. Also
Yeah.
didn't look too happy. Um,
No.
anyway, what else is going on? The Red Stars are off to a tough start.
A poor start.
What's
Yeah.
that?
Uh, I think we cursed them.
We
I think we
did.
hyped them up, and our podcast only follows losing teams.
Yeah, and now they've started off the season by only losing. But they look good in those kids.
They look great.
But it's not like they're getting blown out. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's early,
No.
so I have a lot of faith in the Red Star
Yeah.
for sure. And then we have crazy CCL action going on tonight, the U.S. Open Cup, lots of fun things. Um, but I'm excited because today we have our first supporters group, or members from our first supporters group, on the pod. So we reached out to Fleur Noise, which is a supporters group for St. Louis City, SC, all caps, City,
City!
because we wanted to speak to some supporters surrounding this club that's been off to such an amazing start. They were undefeated until they came up against the Northern Lights Kits of Minnesota United, and they were blinded by their awkward ugliness, and they gave up their first loss. But still, 5-1, they're still top of the Supporters Shield and Western Conference race. So we spoke to Zach and Sam from Florida Noise, who are longtime supporters of soccer in St. Louis and have been one of the more audible fan groups, supporters groups for St. Louis City, about supporting this club, this new club, the kind of the vibes going on in St. Louis, and a little bit about the history of soccer in that great city. So I'm excited about this interview. How about you?
Yeah, I'm super excited to hear perspective on a winning MLS team.
That's a burn. That's a burn, Chicago Fire. Okay.
Sorry. Sorry, not sorry.
All right, let's go to the interview. This week, we are very fortunate to be joined by two individuals who are part of something very exciting that's been happening down in St. Louis. For those of you who are aware, St. Louis City SC is a new team in Major League Soccer, and they have started the season on fire, breaking the league record for 5 consecutive wins. I won't mention what happened after that, but they've also built a beautiful soccer specific stadium in beautiful downtown St. Louis. And that stadium has been filled with very knowledgeable and excited fans fueled in large part by excellent supporters groups. And we are fortunate enough today to speak with Zach Zaya and Sam Wise, who are members of Fleur de Noise, a supporters group in St. Louis who support St. Louis City SC. Sam and Zach, welcome.
My pleasure.
Maria and I have been following the club, I think, with a lot of people because it's new. And there's been a lot of hype about the amazing stadium that was built downtown. But I think there was a lot of question about what the product would actually be with this team because there weren't any huge signings. There wasn't a lot of like noise around big DPs coming in. But I think that the team surprised a lot of people where they came out with a very clear playing style, mindset, and really a unity you don't see in a lot of new teams. But I think what a lot of people have also been taken by is the atmosphere surrounding the club with the supporters and supporters groups. And obviously St. Louis has a rich history of soccer. It is really arguably the soccer capital of the U.S. when you look at a lot of the history in this country.
Oh, don't tell Casey you said that. I'm sorry.
I know, I've been following you. I've been following your feud online. Don't worry about it. I'll say whatever I want about Kansas City. So I'm curious, what is the history of Fleur de Noise, and are you guys something that just kind of developed with this new club, or do you have kind of a history prior to that?
I mean, that's kind of a trick question because Fleur de Noise as the group itself is an iteration of kind of like most of St. Louis soccer, kind of an iteration of something that came before it. So we were part of the largest supporters group in St. Louis was the St. Louigans. They've been around since AC St. Louis. They just a bunch of fans that got together and watched soccer together. And then when unfortunately that team, along with Athletic, folded, they started just supporting a team that played in kind of a public park, college kids on summer breaks, which is kind of where I jumped in. And we were all just hanging out. And then we got a USL team in St. Louis FC in 2015. And I picked up right around then. I wanted to get on the ground floor because I was very much into making noise at soccer games. I'm very, very loud. And so I got in on that very, very early and was part of the group that helped found the drum line for St. Louis FC. And then Sam, who had been around for many years, and I'll let him tell his side of it, jumped in and through the years of St. Louis FC and then coming into St. Louis City, we knew we wanted to create something, but also we knew that it wasn't just going to be the St. Louigans that were going to be here. We knew that there were going to be more groups that were going to pop up, and we wanted to take the noise section and make it agnostic in a way, to make it more open to the larger supporter group landscape in St. Louis. We didn't want people to feel intimidated by walking into the St. Louigan drumline if they were a punk, or if they were in STL Santos, or if they were in another group that we don't even know about yet. So Florida Noise was kind of born out of that necessity of creating a space that was a little bit less branded as a supporter group, and then kind of allowed us to create our own identity within that. So we're kind of unique in the sense that we've been around for quite a while, but this is our new name or our new brand of Florida Noise.
Sam, did you have anything to add to that?
I mean, Zach really hit it on the head. Very similar to how he came around. I went to a number of AC St. Louis games back in 2009, 2010. Never got involved with soccer supporters culture, but it was always, looking at the guys on the other end of the field who are tailgating and chanting and heckling and just really having a good time. When St. Louis FC came around, I knew it was, a group that I wanted to be a part of, that this was a soccer team that I wanted to be a part of. The easiest way to do that with minimal social effort is to start playing the drum in the drum corps, So I had a buddy of mine who's a drummer, and he had a free drum, and they were looking for more drums, and it all just kind of fell into place.
And I'm curious, now in this new iteration with this most recent version of a St. Louis club, what would you say beyond that inclusive mission, which you stated so clearly? What do you feel that makes your supporters group unique in terms of your presence at games?
Our goal is not just, to Zach's point, to make noise. We're both really good at it. But it's also to engage not just the players on the field or the other 3,000 people in our section on our end, but really to try and engage the entire stadium and create, a comprehensive atmosphere that a visiting team or a visiting player doesn't want to be a part of. But a St. Louis City SC player can thrive and find another gear in and really use the energy that we're bringing to elevate their game and find success on the field.
So what you're saying is you guys are completely responsible for the 5-game winning streak at the start of the season.
Oh, God, there are some people on the internet that would love me to say yes to that. Oh, boy.
Just say yes. Say yes.
There's something about your music that makes other teams pass to Klaus. Yeah.
Joe Klaus's ability to be invisible at 6'3" is the reason we are 5-0. They've built a heck of a team that none of us really knew what to expect anything from. You mentioned it in the very beginning of, we didn't build an MLS club from previous MLS players. We brought in Lutz to go out and build Lutz's style of football club. And none of us knew if that was going to be just very interesting, as Lutz himself is very, very interesting, or if that was going to be very good in the way that Lutz at times was very, very good in his career. So it was a very... None of us knew what to expect, but as I alluded to before we started recording, we've not always been good. So many of us who have been around for St. Louis soccer for many years didn't expect greatness. We just expected people to go out and play for the city. And I think that in the heart of what we do as a supporter group, that is what we're doing. We're going out and playing for our city. And I think Florida Noise as a organization very much takes on the mantle of not just cheering for the soccer team, but we cheer for the city in everything that we do. We try to, our mission is live, loud, and local. So everything we do, we try to source from St. Louis. We try to get involved in the type of activities that we think are going to help build up St. Louis. Like one of our groups, The Thieves, does neighborhood cleanups, and they do giveaway or handouts to the unhoused, and they're just recently, we're going to go do something on Saturday with the food bank in St. Louis. So very much encourage our members to be feet on the ground on all levels of St. Louis, and trying to make it a better place through everything that we do. So, we're goofballs that are loud and we yell silly songs and we bang on the drums until our hands bleed. But we also do legitimately want to try and build up St. Louis however we can do that through the platform that we have. And I feel like that is something that maybe I don't think it makes us unique. I think a lot of supporter culture is that in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Supporter culture here gets bad mouth sometimes for being called plastic or being
Right.
fake or whatever. But I think what people mistake for plasticity or virtue signaling is really just a group of people who are trying to go out and do something better in their community that maybe other people aren't doing, or just trying to find a way of synergizing the energy that we have and we bring to a soccer game. We're trying to find a way to bring that same energy to cleaning up a local park.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, just like what the timeline of this was, doing all of these community efforts, something you were able to mobilize and do before the founding of St. Louis City, or were you able to do that before as a supporters group for the previous clubs, or is this something that has really taken off now that like there's an MLS club in the city?
Well, I think the MLS platform certainly helps, amplify that tremendously. But the St. Louligans as a whole, going all the way back, and when we were the Louligan Drum Corps and we were all kind of affiliated under that umbrella, they were doing charitable, efforts. They're collecting donations at every game, having charity soccer tournament to celebrate the new year, canned food drives, like all of those things that are happening now, with the Louligans or the Thieves, their kind of social justice group. They all existed before and are just able to be amplified now that such a large platform has cemented itself in the city.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were doing, even before Florida Noise was officially a thing, we were meeting as a group. We didn't really have a name, but we were kind of meeting for City 2 games. We got involved very early from getting into the neighborhood cleanups. We've done a couple neighborhood cleanups with a community in St. Louis called Dutchtown. So yeah,
Ooh, we would like Dutchtown, wouldn't we, Marie?
We're both Dutch.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and Dutchtown's a really cool part of St. Louis. There's some really, really neat history there that has gotten kind of plastered over a bit because of, just the problems that all cities have.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that there are some really dedicated people in the city of St. Louis that are trying to make communities better. And I think anything, again, that we can do to get on board with those things are the things that we're trying to do. So we've been trying to do that before, but I think the amplification of who we are and our message through MLS has allowed us to reach more people. We would have never talked to you, I don't think, had we
Probably not, no.
if it was still St. Louis FC. So I think just
Yeah.
the ability to get the message out and to talk to people is really what's allowing us to kind of expand that goal.
Yeah, and has the club itself been involved with you guys at all in this, or is it a bit separate?
Well, you're kind of looking at a really fine line. In that, we try really hard, and I would say by and large all the groups are very successful, to maintain the line of independence between the groups and the club. Zach had alluded earlier to, groups get called plastic or they get accused of selling out because they're taking resources from the club, and it creates, this impression or this idea of being indebted to the club. Which is not the case, and it's not something we even want to act in a way that would bring question to where that line is. So we try and are very successful in keeping it independent. It's still a soccer supporters group. There's still a lot of soccer talk. Leagues across the world, are discussed. Everyone's, razzing each other about whose team won the morning before we started the cleanup, all those things. But we try very hard to make it community focused and small group focused, and not let the MLS club overshadow what we're doing.
But that being said, to the club's credit, the members of the staff do come out. So our supporter liaison has come out to almost everything that we've done. The community outreach coordinators come out and do those things. So they are maybe not, we don't ask them to be officially involved, but as members of our community, they do tend to come out, which we notice and appreciate.
But at the same time, they're clearly not directing or orchestrating your actions or your images or your chants. Yeah, I get it.
Exactly.
Well, I think that having been a fan of U.S. soccer for a while, I think on the MLS side that clubs are just starting, I think, to become more aware that in order to create an environment for an authentic supporter culture, there is this sense of tapping into what exists in the community already. And I think that if you just look at, again, from MLS's perspective, you look at the communities they go into to build teams, it's shocking to me that it's taken this long for St. Louis to get a team. And you think of a lot of other cities in the country that have great soccer culture and have that community based and a supporter base that's very tied into supporting the community, like you've expressed so well in your connection. But for a long time, they kind of ignored those, just following kind of the metrics of what are big commercial markets. And being in Chicago here, and I am a long-suffering Chicago Fire fan, I must admit. But I think that's one of the issues here is that club being one of the older clubs that was positioned just because this was a big sports market team. It still kind of struggles to have relevance in the community here because there was the way it was built and continues to exist wasn't really tapping into that culture, the soccer culture that did exist here. I think they're doing a lot to repair it. But I think it's taken a long time for MLS to really acknowledge what already existed. So I think it's really great to see in St. Louis that is happened in a way. But with that said, I'm curious, prior to this, did either of you follow MLS? Did you have clubs in MLS, or were you kind of like, that's going on, that's great, we're very focused on the teams we're supporting here at home?
I don't know if I should legally answer this question because it gets me in trouble a lot. I am not a fan of the league of MLS. I've never have been. I don't. Kind of a lot of what you're alluding to a bit on the other side of that. I'll credit MLS for getting me excited. Actually, it was Chicago Fire game that I won tickets to when I was many, many years ago when I was a teacher. That got me to my first game. I went in and cheered with Section 8 in Chicago, and it was great.
Awesome.
It was kind of my first experience of a live supporter culture, and I thought that was super cool. But MLS as an entity leaves a lot to be desired for me on a sporting organizational side. So I tend to stay out of a lot of the MLS conversations. Sam and I both support the same English Premier League team, unfortunately, Chelsea. which is
So sorry.
yeah, no, me too. Gosh, me too. If I could go back in time and choose another team, golly, would I?
What are you talking about? You guys have so many high-priced players and high-priced former managers.
100%. Yeah, we paid $20 million or $60 million to get a manager, and then we're going to pay the rest of his contract after we fired him. And it's not the first or the last time that we'll do that. So, no, it really is. I mean, and I think Sam maybe has a different view of MLS, but we had, in my opinion, a really great community team in St. Louis FC. And not saying that City isn't or can't be, but the level of connection you got on the USL team versus the level of connection you get from a league that's trying to be a top league in the world, it's just a different level. And I think given the opportunity to choose between the two, I would have stayed where I was. But that's not an option that we had.
Right.
And so, we are where we are. But as an organization, MLS has never been something I have followed because I've never really enjoyed the way that they do things.
What would you see change about it?
Oh, golly.
If that can be summed up into words instead of just groans.
Well, Justin, I think to your point that you touched on, we're seeing a paradigm shift in the league where, clubs, not necessarily the league, but clubs are starting to respect the power of the supporters groups. And I don't mean that in any sort of, struggle, but just the importance of having them around, the importance of being on the same side, how collaboration is beneficial for both organizations, right? It started in DC a couple of years ago. The Columbus Crew, relocation,
right?
Just disaster is a huge piece of that too, right? So, seeing the league give clubs the ability to shift and focus on supporters relations and fan relations is a huge positive. But until the league openly embraces it, it's going to be a hard sell for everyone to adopt en masse.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think there's always been a wall between the money-making side of MLS and the sporting fan side of MLS. And I think if we can ever bridge the gap of this is not just a good marketing decision, but it's a good decision for everybody involved, I think that's where MLS turns a corner.
I would agree. And I think that, just my opinion, that comes from the corporate side of it being kind of a single entity that is really managing all these teams down to a structural level. Because I think like many American fans, I would see the benefits of a true pyramid in this country, because that would also loosen the control of obviously the corporate entity of MLS if they couldn't dictate what high-priced teams they decide are in their league, if it's actually determined by who is promoted and relegated. But I have Commissioner Garber here, so I have to move on. I'm not allowed to talk anymore. All right, Maria, do you have the next question?
We were checking out the Fleur de Noise webpage and the Instagram and stuff, and you guys have so many chants.
Yeah, we're at a point where we have a rule where it's like when you have too many shirts, right? If you want to buy a new shirt, you've got to get rid of 2 or 3 of them.
One in, one out for chants.
We have a lot. We have too many.
It's more often 1 out and 5 in, unfortunately.
I love it. What are the criteria for a good chant? What makes it catch on? How do you spread the word? What goes into this? I need to know.
Oh, well, we've got a podcast for you. It's called Show Up, Make Noise, and gosh, have we talked about it. But no, really, there are a couple things that make a chant work. One is recognizability. If you're going to do a song that you're going to write new words to, everybody has to know it. Now, that falls into a couple different categories, and people in the soccer sphere differ greatly on what they think are the most popular things. There are a lot of fans who very much just want to emulate everything that they hear from the terraces of England, or from ultras around the world.
Right.
There's also a group of fans who just want to do things that are based off of the traditional American or Hispanic chants that are familiar. And then there's people like me who just want to do the stupidest thing possible, because I think that's fun. I like to go for fun versus I'm not the person who's going to write a super warlike chant. I think my most warlike suggestion was the one that ended up turning into what we just refer to as our STL chant. If you listen to the game, you're going to hear it after we score a goal. It's really based off of a Celtic war song that you would never ever know beyond the fact that it ends up in triplets. But the things that have the ones that are the most fun for me are, we did a Hit Me Baby One More Time is Shoot It Baby One More Time. But for us, again, we were terrible. So much of our history, we were a bad soccer team. St. Louis FC, I love them to death, and we had some good runs, but we were not good, and we didn't shoot the ball, and we didn't score. So 90% of our chants were about, we need to shoot more and we need to score, and the fact that we haven't scored yet is killing us. So many of our chants were just to entertain ourselves and to find joy in a patch of things, but it's 90 degrees and 150% humidity.
I could use some of these as a Leeds United fan myself, where I shout at the TV, just shoot it!
Right.
And they don't.
Absolutely. And that's why we turn tequila into Shoot It. Because, that's the other thing you need for a good chant, is there can't be a lot of words to it. We get a lot of people who send us chant ideas that are paragraphs long. And
they're fully baked, like, pop chart lyrics in these songs, and the creativity is 100%. Like, it's absolutely there, and you're reading the lyrics and like, well, there could be something there, but most fans don't want a fifth or a sixth or a seventh line, more or less, a second verse and then an interlude. So it really is, the simplest thing is going to federate through the stadium the fastest.
Yeah. So the things that we've ended up doing this year are really the chants that I would say are probably my least favorite chants, but they're the ones that get people moving, and they're the ones that if 3,000 people don't know your chant, they're going to pick up on the second go round.
Right.
It's not going to take 12 times at a video explainer to get them to understand it. Now, I'm going to keep putting out video explainers for chants I would like to do and see if any of them ever pick up. But the most important part, and we've said it from the very beginning, is that people chant. It doesn't matter what the chant is, as long as people are doing it and as long as people are making noise. It can be, the greatest written chant in the world, or it can just be a whole bunch of people making mouth noises. It really doesn't matter, as long as they're driving energy for the team and it gets our players moving in a way that helps propel us forward. That's really the only thing that matters in a chant. So yes, we have a lot of creativity and we have a lot of fun things that we've written and whatever, but I would say 90% of them don't really ever happen, because when you want, we try them, we'll try them, and we'll keep trying them, but when you try 2 or 3 in a row that don't work, eventually you just go back to the one everybody's going to do, because that's the most important thing. Is being clever isn't important, being loud is important.
You have to kill your darlings.
Yeah. But I mean,
Well,
I think the ones that caught on the most was we did a Joe Klaus. Obviously, you've got a
mhm.
goal scorer who wants to go out, and so somebody suggested do Santa Claus is coming to town for Joe Klaus, and it's dumb, but it's such a fun chant,
That
And if you
works.
find a way to, people want to write the verse for it, and I'm like, nah, just make the ba 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 noise because it's
Yeah.
if you don't have to learn the verse, why learn extra words? Just have fun and make noise doing it. So
I think it works so well because he kind of looks like Santa Claus too. I mean,
yeah, our 46-year-old, 26-year-old.
what is the feeling? You talk about your history of really coming up with chants just to keep yourself distracted while you were supporting a struggling team. Now you've come out of the gates with kind of starting a team that's top of the supporter shield race, top of the West. And I would say, definitely a contender for the end of the season. There's a long way to go. But definitely at this moment, an exciting team that's scoring a lot of goals, that's winning. What is the vibe in that stadium when you start one of these chants and they do take off like that? It is a pretty loud stadium right now with the enthusiasm so high, it's packed. What does that feel like when you're like, okay, we're gonna do this chant, and you start and you just hear it take over the stadium?
I mean, it's electric, and people talk about these big moments and getting chills and goosebumps. Uh, we gave up that penalty kick right in the last game, which wound up being all it needed, the only shot on net from them. But we did just the straight STL chant. It's short, it's simple, everyone knows it. It federates the stadium. The capos, the chant leaders, were looking for the next chant and had called the next chant up to the drum platform, and we were ready to cut over. And then you hear it off to your left, and the west side of the stadium is in line with you with the chant. And then you can hear it on the south side of the stadium. Everyone's in line with the chant, and suddenly the entire stadium is all, I'm not going to say in line with each other because sound, how sound travels, but they're all doing the same chant and they're all generating a lot of noise. And even at like parade rest, City Park is a loud stadium. So when you get 15,000 people all yelling the same thing at roughly the same time, it's absolutely indescribable to sit there and listen to it happen.
Yeah, it's one thing to be in a stadium like, we've being in St. Louis, we all love our Blues or the Cardinals. And those stadiums are loud and they get to a fever pitch, but very rarely does everyone do the same thing at the same time. And those times where STL hits or we do Seven Nation Army as everyone does, and everyone around the stadium picks it up. Or at the end of a game, if we win, we do St. Lou, which is just Hey Jude, but to St. Lou. And that when any number of people are doing it, like that song to me is a full religious experience. Like that when we can play and we drop and everyone else keeps going, that feeling is just something that it's a 20,000 person chorus, and that to me is just the connection of humanity, is why we all kind of enjoy sport, I think, in a way. It bridges that weird gap that we all have in human person, interpersonal communication, that we can't always agree the same thing. And at least for 90 minutes, we can all kind of get locked in that way. And when we all sync up, it really is magic.
Oh, that's amazing. Maria and I were curious about that last game. And do you think that your players were distracted by those horribly ugly Minnesota kits, or what's your explanation of what happened?
I mean, if you look back at the things that came out today, a Minnesota player should have had a second yellow in the 28th minute. As MLS agreed with us today on that both Tim Parker shouldn't have had a yellow and the other guy should have because they fined him over it. So realistically, it probably should have been a different game. In real time, it didn't really look like anything happened on the penalty. We had very clearly cleared the ball, but you look back at it, he went through him. A ref's going to call that every time. We maybe should have gotten a call the other direction on a high boot in the box. If you're going to call one, you should call the other. But honestly, we're going to lose a game sometime, and I think the people who have been around for a long time in the soccer community, we're just so darn happy we're winning. I mean, it really is. It's a different level of, we've seen great Open Cup victories and we've seen wins, but we've never seen dominant performances in the way that we've seen in a couple games. Like the Real Salt Lake game really stands out in my mind as a game that I was terrified of. I thought we were going to go in and it was going to be tough at altitude and we could have gotten beat badly.
Yeah, they're tricky.
And that Berkey save at the end of the first half, everybody talks back to it, but that was that turning point of, oh man, okay, we're still in it. And then we stepped on the gas and they didn't know what to do. And I think that Minnesota did a great job of making it so we couldn't step on the gas in a way. And I think they play a very similar style that we do. So when you put two very, very similar styles together, I think that's usually the kind of game you're going to get.
Yeah. A bunch of us were talking because it's not just the Minnesota game, right? We've got Seattle and Cincy, coming up. So it's a tough stretch. And, I was talking to some of the guys too. It's like, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if we came out at 5-3, right? Just looking at the teams, our luck isn't going to last forever. That's just the nature of the game. I really thought the Minnesota game, we had a shot at sneaking away a goal, or at least walking away with a draw until that call. Minnesota did a really good job of dropping a 4-4 into the back and just made it so crowded in that final third of the field, and where against Real and against, Austin and the other teams, João Klaus has been able to flick a ball and it's found somebody, or Edward Leuven was able to, float one in and it found somebody. There was just so many Minnesota United players in that back third that they just got in the way and they slowed it down and they parked, and we just weren't able to find a lane to shift into that gear we needed to.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys are on everyone's radar now, so people are preparing in a way that they weren't at the beginning of the season. But I think there's inevitably going to be losses, but I think it's going to be a strong.
Winning is overrated anyway.
Okay, Leeds, I got you. But you guys won today, Maria. You guys beat Forest today. You guys did better than Chelsea today. So.
I don't think Zach. There's not a way to explain how much Zach is not exaggerating about. We're just happy to see goals and a team that turns downfield and moves the ball, and to have a guy who can play with his back to the net. Like, the bar was not high for what we would consider, entertaining and successful soccer. So City has come in and built a system that's absolutely blown away the expectation or standard that anyone following the previous levels of St. Louis soccer would have expected.
Yeah. I mean, our savior always was our center back, in previous seasons. Our most dependable goal scorer when we needed a goal was our center back, Sam Fink. So the fact that none of our center backs are anywhere near our top threat is, again, just wonderful. It's a wonderful feeling. So, John Terry used to score a lot of goals with his head for Chelsea. I'm a big fan of a center back who uses his head to score, but I want our attacking players to be attacking players, and that's something that the City has not had a problem with so far, and that's very exciting.
That's something I want.
I'm just jealous.
Yeah.
I'm just jealous.
I mean, come on. Leeds has a lot of attacking players. None of them can figure out where the net is, but they have a lot of attacking players. Little America's not doing great right now.
It's because they got rid of Captain Jesse Marsh. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, boy. Future coach of the Chicago Fire, Jesse Marsh.
I was thinking U.S. men's national team, but...
Well, yeah.
Oh, no.
I mean, I don't
We're
think it'll be
screenplay.
either, but...
We're writing a screenplay where he comes back to Chicago.
He comes
And,
home
Okay.
to reignite his
Yeah,
love
he
for
comes
the
home.
sport. I don't
I'm
think
here
they
for
could
it.
pay him enough. I don't think they could pay him enough. Oh, my gosh.
We'll change the names.
Chicago Leeds United. So you mentioned some of the games ahead that you're a tough stretch. Are there any games this season that you guys are especially looking forward to?
I mean, I can think of 3 right off the bat. They're all against the same team, though, right? We head to Kansas City for 1, and we host them for 2. And I think everybody in St. Louis is ready to, win those games and then move on from this just ridiculous notion that Kansas City has that we don't like them, or we like them, or we even think about them.
You're thinking
Something
about them right now.
you're clearly disproving at the moment.
Here's the thing: we didn't think about them until they sent us cease and desist letters. Their lawyers have made us. Think about them.
That was pretty ridiculous, and that got a lot of attention as well.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
Good on the River City Ramble guys. They really framed that in a way that that got them a lot of traction, and that's some smart podcasting right there.
So could you? Because my understanding of that is was it the name of their podcast or their group was similar to one in Kansas City, and then the club actually issued their lawyers on them to change the name. Is that correct? What happened?
Yeah. So they chose a name that was not trademarked at the time that they chose it.
Mm-hmm.
Casey had it trademarked in the past and had let it lapse, and so they jumped on the name but did not trademark it because they're 4 guys in a basement, and then Casey got wind of it, re-trademarked their previous podcast name, which was it's not exactly the same, but it's close enough that a lawyer can argue that that they should change it, and there's a whole backstory, and I'm sure someone else will tell it better than I will, so I don't want to ruin that story or give away something that is to come, because there is more to this saga, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We just saw today Matt Baker, who is Mr. Knowledge for everybody on the supporter side of St. Louis soccer, said that the company that owns City, the larger LLC, trademarked the cease and desist cup today. So I'm a huge fan of that. We were going to go with Derby Q, I think, was the one that the team was floating, but I think cease and desist cup is really great. The Luligans want to call it, they want to name it after the lawyer, Andrea something or other. But I think that's giving her a lot of credit. Like, she didn't do anything wrong. So I would say the cease and desist cup is where I hope it goes.
I think you should bring legal action against KC for having city in their name, since their stadium's nowhere near a city.
Which we're all very quick to remind all of the fans.
Yeah, they're real close to Dave & Buster's, though, so you can go spend some tokens on some skee ball right after the game.
But I mean, that's going to be a great rivalry, and I think by the way things look this year, you are in good position in that match for sure. So
I hope so. They, as the St. Louis team, they were the first MLS team we ever played. We went there in 2015 as a USL team. We went to Sporting KC, and we got shushed by Graham Zusi because we were out chanting their crowd. In a USL game, we brought 300 people and made a whole heck of a lot more noise than they did. So we have a lot of history. Me personally, I just want to take it to Cincy because Cincy's insufferable. Um, but I think Sam hit it on the head. That KC, I think, is going to be those 3 games this year. And we've had history with KC fans, unfortunately, too. So
Yeah.
it'll be a very interesting rivalry, I think, that has already borne some fruit before we've even kicked a game.
And that's great. It's great to have these rivalries starting to form in this league, like real, honest rivalries, not just proximity created. So, I have one last question about the Florida Noise badge that you guys have. Who made that, and what's the story of that? Because I quite like it. I think it's pretty great.
So we had a member who met the designer of this logo, and I'm actually a huge fan of this guy's work, though I didn't know him previously. He created a bunch of logos for beer cans and things around St. Louis. It's at Shepherd Studios is
Okay.
the name of the studio, and Steve was the guy that specifically designed our logo, but he does hand drawn. A lot of people do the kind of very digital design, and Steve's thing is very organic, very hand drawn. And he did some CBD seltzers, which I'm a huge fan of because I don't drink a lot of alcohol contrary to the St. Louis supporter ethos of drink beer all the time. But I really enjoy those as a cocktail that other people, while other people are drinking. And so I was always a huge fan of that art, and I just kind of randomly came up that this guy was around. We reached out, and he did, one draft that was absolutely the antithesis of everything we said we wanted in a logo, and we all saw it and went, yeah, that's it. That's what the logo should be.
That's the best design does that. Yeah.
It is it was so different than what any of us had in our head, but I think Sam would agree. We all saw it, and there have been 4 or 5 minor changes that happened, but more or less the logo that he put out was the logo that we ended up going with, and that really is the signal of great design.
Yeah, I think there was the only thing we changed, there was a horizontal bar down in kind of the bottom third of the logo, and then on the second swing he turned it into a drumstick, and we were like, all right, there we go. Now people know what we do.
Yeah, and we added a third noise line. There are the noise lines that come out of the middle of the thing that break through the badge. We added a third one of those. I think that was the only thing that changed in the whole design. But yeah, he does incredible work, and cannot be more thankful for him and the incredible price he gave us on doing the work for us. So because everything we do comes out of our pocket, more or less. So we're always grateful when we have partners that are willing to help out and go on a revenue share model versus a flat pay out the front model.
Well, I think it's a really well designed and fun and kind of organic of logo badge. And I think it's a great representation for what the sense I get from you both, Zach and Sam, which I'm sure is representative of so many fans in St. Louis. And I think, Zach, you said it earlier that really summed it up is, so much about our love for the game and being involved in supporters groups is about this connection with humanity. And I've just really enjoyed this chance to get to know both of you and make that connection. So I really appreciate you coming on. And I just have one last question. If today, with their current teams, St. Louis played Chelsea, who would win and what would be the score?
Oh, shit.
Oh my God! Like the very immediate Chelsea squad.
The immediate Chelsea squad and manager situation.
I still think Chelsea wins it 2-0, but it's a very unconvincing 2-0.
Yeah, Chelsea edges us on natural talent.
Yeah.
Like an Enzo Fernandez who just has an ungodly amount of talent, and that it sneaks in. So I would say probably 2-1. I think City gets one back in the 70th.
Yeah, we might get a set piece in there somewhere.
Klaus ends up with the ball right in front of the goal somehow.
Oh yeah. Batshuayi is going to pass it straight back to him. Not Batshuayi. What's the gosh dang it! I'm so bad with names.
That's
This is
all
why
right.
I don't do. It's why I don't do a player podcast. I talk about songs.
Well, it's been great, and I really appreciate talking to both of you. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you
thanks
so
for having
much.
us.
That was very enjoyable, I have to say. First of all, Zach has one of the most soothing voices ever.
He should definitely podcast more often, Zach.
I would also just, I would follow that voice anywhere, chant whatever you want to chant, Zach. Let's do it. But really, that Fleur Noise is doing great things, and it really is a good, I think, view into the exciting culture surrounding St. Louis City, but really just soccer culture in St. Louis. I think a lot of us just are this idea that, this new MLS team popped up out of nowhere, but it's clearly not out of nowhere. There's a lot of fertile ground and history down there that this team is built on. And that was just a really fun interview to get to know them.
Yes.
Well, yes. Yes. Wow.
Yes.
Well said, Maria. It is late at night. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Well done. Well, that was great. It's late, so maybe we should wrap it up. But we'll be back next week, and we are going to get to our turkey episode, which I'm very excited about. So until then, what are you looking forward to this week, Maria?
I am looking forward to the Fire and the Red Stars winning this weekend.
Oh man, you so cursed us. Oh boy, I'm looking forward to Leeds ending up above Chelsea in the Premier League table at the end of the season.
I think they're only 2 spaces below.
2 spots,
but it's,
but
10,
it's quite a few points.
10 points.
Just 2 spaces, 10 points. Okay, so we will be back next week, and we're going to talk turkey. Sounds good.
Woohoo! Bye.
All right, bye.